And as we've also seen some work being done by Team Sky Pro Cycling from the United Kingdom, and they are trying to see whether or not the next man to wear the yellow jersey will be Bradley Wiggins. This is the small church of Saint-Martin. It dates back to 1844, and that onion-shaped bell tower you have on the top here was very, very reminiscent of the area around the Bow, and very, very much seen in the area of Belfort.
Yeah, but it doesn't really look like a church you would see in France, because of course this area has been ruled by other countries in the years gone by, but currently it's owned by France, and that's where it'll stay, I guess.
Well, the Spanish came almost up to this part of the world as well, and almost took over the Duchy of Savoie many years ago, but now it is very much with a Swiss influence.
There's one man down there not watching the Tour de France as he skis around one of the lakes here. Maybe he's just put this out in the centre. It's a beautiful bicycle floating along. But the race itself now charging down the passes here through the wooded scenery, being driven on. 3 teams doing the work, Paul. 3 teams with different interests. Team Sky for Bradley Wiggins. The blue jerseys of Garmin Sharp. They are riding for Dan Martin today to try and get a stage win up a mountain for the first time he's ridden the Tour de France. And the boys in red and black, they're racing for Cadell Evans. They all know what they've got to do today, and there are many intruders down that long line who will try and spoil the party. We're only 26 kilometres from the finish, so in about 20 kilometres time we're going mountaineering.
Well, Dan Martin had a very nasty accident to the Criterium du Dauphiné, which was about a month before the start of the Tour de France, and he was really banged up and scraped up. He soldiered on through the whole of that race, stuck together with bandages, because he knew he needed the mileage competition to be ready for the Tour de France. The fact that he stayed in through the Criterium du Dauphiné indicates that he is the kind of rider who can finish it off at the top of a climb like this. He won a stage of the Vuelta a España last year towards the end of the year, and in the early part of his career, Phil, I thought he was going to be one of those riders who was always dogged by illness and injury, but in the last couple of seasons he really seemed to have toughened himself up.
I tell you, Neil is a real class bike rider. Those in the know recognise Neil as being such, and I think we might get some indication of that today. I said Neil, I meant Dan.
Yeah, Neil Martin is Dan's dad, and Dan was a very good racer. I raced with Neil Martin myself on a number of occasions when I got across the race in the United Kingdom, and in fact he was on the Tom Percy Bilton squad in the old days with John Herity, who runs the Rapper team. Anyway, Dan Martin, his son, I think Dad is extremely proud. He was the National Road Racing Champion of Ireland back in 2008, and it was the first indication that he was going to be a great bike rider when he won that year the Rues depuis, which again is a preparation race for the Tour de France in the southern part of France in the Pyrenees, and it's a very tough mountainous race. Last year, in fact, Dan Martin finished in second place in the Tour of Lombardy, and that is one of, I would say, 5 of the iconic one-day races of the world to be added to the Milan-San Remo, Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and the Tour of Lombardy, which is known by many as the race of the falling leaves. Just looking here, this is the chapel of Notre Dame du Haut, and it was actually designed in the work of the very famous architect Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier also made famous for being an architect who designed a lot of buildings in France to be able to resist earthquakes, especially one of the famous buildings in Marseille known as Le Corbusier, which was named after this architect. The chapel was built on the ruins of a former Middle Ages sanctuary where many people came for pilgrimages. The pilgrimages happen still to this day every 8th of September when they celebrate the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin. The Tête de la Course, the front end of the race, still Martin Bellets, and 2.5 minutes. It's going to be touch and go, and you can see the urgency of the pedaling action of those 7 leaders, while they know that the main field is starting to wind up the clockwork to get themselves ready to launch an assault on this final climb of the day. And it's still David Miller of Great Britain sitting on the front rides for Garmin Sharp. He will be an integral part of Great Britain's team at the Olympic Games. Pretty certain he will be one of the riders who will ride an individual time trial as well, but he'll be brought into the squad to look after Mark Cavendish in the road race and try and set up the gold medal for Cavendish. Miller turned professional way back in 1997. He's now 35 years of age. No wins to his credit this year, but he won the time trial in the Tour of Italy.
2 minutes 22, 23.5 kilometres to go to the finish. That's just slightly less than 15 miles left to race now, Paul. We are in this area. We have these beautiful narrow roads through these little villages. Then we'll get into the undulations of the wooded countryside. We'll see the open plains as well. This is a beautiful part of France.
You would have to say that this incursion into the Vosges here, Phil, it's a region of France that the Tour de France doesn't visit very much. It's an hors d'oeuvre for what's to come for the rest of the Tour, because once we move away from the Vosges, the next mountain range we'll go through tomorrow is the Jura. Then after that, after the individual time trial and the rest day on Monday and Tuesday, we'll go into the Alps, and that's where the Tour will really start to reach the high spots. But I've always found that this part of France a very difficult part of France to race in, because the roads are very, very heavy roads.
Church of Saint-Pierre and Paul, which is classified as a historical monument, stands on a rocky promontory here, another beautiful part of the world.
It's a medieval church. In fact, it was originally built in the 11th and 12th centuries, and most of the recent part of the church was renovated in 1860, and it still is a place of worship to this day. These boys